Welcome everybody to Effortless Content. So this training is going to be showcasing a couple of things when it comes to content, how we can make content easier, what goes into what I like to call client converting content, as well as kind of some systems that you can use to maximize how much content you're putting out. Because I know that it can be really easy to get super content fatigued, and then you're just like, all right, what the hell do I post today? Which is all the lovely fun stuff. So some of you guys know me on a little bit of a deeper level, but for those of you who don't know me, so my name is Andrew Costa. I run one of three companies. So I own Fit for All Fitness Inc., and we also own a supplement company called Clean Basics. But right now, my big passion project in our third company is Coach to Coach Systems. So this is a company that's designed on being able to help and scale fitness business owners, practitioners, and be able to build them out. So social media is something that I spend a lot of time doing. It is easily, when it comes to, I would say, all three of our divisions, it's probably the largest thing on my time block. That being said, I've really managed to, in combination of all three businesses, spend about 15 hours a week being able to create and curate content. And if you take a look, if you're not following me in different sections and platforms on already, I have a YouTube channel. We do YouTube Shorts. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I have a TikTok that we just started. Yeah, I'm TikToking now, like all those super young folk. But one of the biggest things when it comes to content is visibility, being visible for your audience. And so we've done a phenomenal job being able to do that. And for those of you who follow my wife as well, on our other half of the division with Fit for All, she has a very large following. She just chooses to focus on Instagram and Facebook. So it has been social media. Sure, we do other things. We network. We've been a part of local like BNI chapters and groups. Yes, we've done Facebook ads and stuff, but nothing has drawn more income and has built our business more than social media. And the reason why I showcase some of our numbers there on the side, our recent kind of clients that come in, is because we, especially with content, we have broken the barrier, and I've seen a redefinition of what it means to actually have someone sign up online. People are eager, they are willing, they want the right professional to work with them, and you are the right professional. You just have to get in front of the right people. So everything that we've built, I'd say probably about 85% of our business has largely been done through our content and what we're attracting every single day. So my goal is to basically make sure that your content becomes this thing, which is super easy for people to get a hold of you and to see you, and make it super easy. So that's what we're going to go in today. We're going to go into kind of where you guys as coaches and business owners struggle with content. We'll go through some content myths because I keep getting them asked all the time, and then we'll go straight dive into what makes client converting content, finally streamlining your block. So like I said at the beginning, any questions that you guys have along the way, do not hesitate to ask them. We'll make sure that of course I answer them as they go along. So want to get a good kind of judge of where everybody's at when it comes to content. So you can either drop a yes in the chat, or if you're on good old video with me, Madeline Teagan here, you can do a show of hands. How many of you struggle to think of topics that you should be sharing? So like the creation of topics is kind of that thing. You can drop a yes in the chat, or you can put your hand up. Madeline Teagan, perfect. Okay. That's very, very common. Another common one tends to be that content is taking super long. So you're writing a post, you're like, hey, it's going to be 15 minutes. And then 2.5 hours later, you're like, I've got the first three sentences. And that's a big one. Pamela says, yeah, two as well. Perfect. And then the last one, how many of you guys just feel at this point that you're just putting stuff out there because you know that you have to? And that is something that I would say for probably the first 2.5 years of business, I thought that's just the way that content was. That every single day I had to just keep putting stuff out there all the time in hopes that I'd be attracting the right people. And that's a big thing. So, and Madeline says, I feel like thinking of content and actually posting it takes long. Yes, 100%. And that's because a lot of the ways that traditionally we are shown that content needs to be created is typically a long process. And the reason why it's shown to us long is because there are a lot of companies that specialize in editing, clipping, posting, reeling, full-on marketing teams that want you to believe it's a long process, because then, of course, they want you to offload it to them, which If you're at that level, is great. You can totally do that. One of the things, though, when it comes to kind of offloading a mess or offloading your content, is no one is really going to be able to speak to your message and to your client demographic like you can. So we have worked with a marketing company in the past. We offloaded our stuff, and what I found was we saw less results, and didn't really get the people we were looking for. And that's because ultimately they don't know how to talk to the client like we do as coaches. So you're in the content grinder right now. That's what I like to call it. That's the kind of thing where every single day you're like, oh, geez, this really, really sucks. But the content grinder is actually this thing where if you use it properly, you actually get to put out consistent, smooth, creamy, very chocolatey content instead of something that's like you feel like you're going through the meat grinder yourself. Okay. Now, I've kind of taken a look at a lot of people's content lately, and there's kind of four problems that I see which makes content really difficult for coaches to put out. The first is that a lot of coaches try to speak and connect with everybody. They hope that by casting a wide net and saying general things in their content, that they're going to be able to just pull as many people. And then what they say to themselves is, I will sift through the leads, and then from there, I can narrow it down. The reality is, though, if you do not have a clear audience, then the person is not going to connect with you on an emotional level for them to be able to actually say, hey, I want to reach out for what you have. And it doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter if you're promoting a guide, if you're promoting a course, if it's a service like coaching. The reality is now people want to buy with people they know, like, and trust. And if the message isn't specific enough that's speaking to them, their facility, their gyms, you as them as a client, then they're going to say to themselves, well, I don't feel like this person gets me. So speaking to everybody, not good. Second one is a lot of times coaches will have blocks of inconsistency where maybe you're posting for every single day, 2 to 3 weeks, but then it drops down to twice a week. And that kind of non-consistency, it really changes your visibility. The way that the algorithms are working now is if someone is following your page, if they have sent you a DM or you've had a conversation in a DM and they've liked more than 3 of your posts, then on average, if you are posting every single day, like basically 7 days a week, they're going to see 2 to 3 of your posts. And stories, because stories is kind of that active thing that goes away all the time, they tend to see about 40% of your story posts. So what this means is regardless of whether you're posting 7 days a week or 3 days a week, you have to be consistently showing up in order for the algorithm to understand when they need to push your posts. If you're posting all over the place and there's no consistency, well, then content's going to start being hard. The third thing is the posting certain topics. There are things that we want to talk about as coaches and as leaders, but then there's also the types of topics that our clients are looking for and what they want to hear. And when I take a look at someone's feed, especially over a month, I should have an understanding of what they are trying to market. What is the program that they're promoting? What is the thing that they're pushing? What is the objective that they're trying to get to? And you should have some type of a marketing strategy where, for example, if you were to take a look at my feed, I've been talking about effortless content as the live training for the past 5 weeks. And it's because it's going to lead up into the next program, which is client converting content, which we're going to be rolling out in a couple of months. So the purpose of leading certain topics so that way you can lead up certain marketing, that's very important. And then the fourth one is you're spending too much time talking about this stuff. When I see people promote, especially products, so like courses, programs, modules, they're always talking about what's inside the course. In the course, you'll learn this. In our modules, you'll learn this. But in reality, it's not the modules that get people invested. It's the transformation through the process or the end result that they're getting. So they spend too much time talking about this stuff. And that ultimately tells me that they're not really sure how they buy. Of these four that I just shared, I'm curious, any of them resonate with you guys? Where maybe one is something where you're experiencing right now. You can drop in the chat or you can Yeah, dropping in the chat might be a little good because I have the chat up. So Madeline talks about the consistency. Perfect. Tegan says number two, consistency with visibility. Okay. Two peas in a pod. There you go. Love it. And there are others too, but this is kind of the four things that it comes down to because what happens is we get these really big sprints of motivation. We start posting a lot, and then when that starts winding down, or maybe we're not having a lot of client conversations, then the consistency comes down, right? So, and Pamela, she just shared perfectly this. I don't have consistency unless I have lots going on. So, the more conversations you have with clients, the more connectivity you have, the more experiences you're doing, chances are the more content that you're going to have to put out. So, all right. Final thing about this miss, and then we're going to fire into actually getting this done. Okay. I will break these down for you because all of these are BS. Number one, you don't have to be posting daily. Consistency is where we post daily. The reason why a lot of coaches will tell you that you need to post every day is because most people don't post at all. So if they're only posting once or twice a month, your ideal client is never going to see you with the algorithms. So you get told that you need to post daily in hopes that you build posting as a habit. So as long as you're posting more than 3 times a week, then guess what? You have the daily down pat. You don't really need to be showing up every single day. What you need to be doing is posting intentionally. Because if we are posting, but we're throwing something up there that's not engaging our client, that's actually worse than not showing them something at all. The second thing, you don't have to be on every platform. The reason why I'm on a lot of platforms now is because I do have team members behind me that can help push out multiple things. But where a lot of our bread and butter comes from is from our Instagram and from our Facebook. And so if you have 1 to 2 platforms and you do them really well, you're going to get the same level of growth as if you were to spread your stuff all over the place. Okay. The third, that you have to do all types of content. This is another thing that prevents people from showing up and from creating content is they feel, oh, I have to show up on video, I have to do reels, I have to do carousels, and then whichever one you feel the most resistance with, you start to avoid and then you stop posting. I have friends who have solely captioned posts and quotes, but they're very intentional with their long form copy, and they have just as much success as someone like me who I love showing up with camera. Maybe it's the look of my face, who knows, but it's easier for me to do reels because I find that I can get my energy across. Both are not wrong. There's no right or wrong. What matters is the message inside your medium going to be something that attracts the person? And then the last one is that it's got to be a part-time job. I'm going to show you right now through this effortless content how you can create at least 15 to 20 pieces in about 3 hours. Because I do believe that coaches are overthinking this. I think that they're spending way too much time trying to make something super, super perfect, when in reality, you can never say the wrong thing to the right person. Your right client, your right audience, they're going to be in 100% alignment with what you're doing. So ultimately, content's about a clear audience. You have to have a crystal clear understanding of the problems and who you are serving with your product or your service. The second, you have to have strategic posting. Whether you follow a 1 month marketing calendar, maybe it's a 3 to 4 month marketing calendar like we do, it has to be something where you know why you're posting about that specific thing. And then the third thing is there has to be a repeatable system. And I'm going to show you, of course, the repeatable system that we use, but it has to be something where, regardless of how you feel each week, you can still get out the same amount of content so that way you can keep the same visibility. So here is where it starts. And some of you guys are familiar with this, but I'm going to break it down and add a little bit more. And it's speaking like your audience, which is called client speak. So I want to share with you examples from last week. So I've highlighted it there. Everything you're saying is just so relatable. I'm really interested in coaching. Going to a therapist, trying to get a handle on this, and I can tell she doesn't understand it. Everything you say just describes how I'm feeling. When we create content, When we use the verbs and the wording that our clients use, when we talk how they are speaking, not how we speak as coaches, that is where we get the connection. Because sometimes we can share really valuable information, but as a coach, we put ourselves on a pedestal. And this is the difference between client speak and coach speak. When we use client speaking words, we're talking to them with their words. And when we use coach speak, we're basically creating content that's speaking to ourselves. So let me give you an example here. We run a hormone program at Fit for All Fitness, and a lot of the women we help have menopause. So when women speak about menopause, they talk about it being frustrating. They call it monster pause. They talk about not wanting to deal with it, wanting to overcome it. And so when I use the words monster pause, when I use overcome, when I use that same verbiage, the person reading goes, he gets me. And it doesn't matter what's involved in the program. It doesn't matter what's inside the course. When I start to use the words that my clients are saying on consults, when I start to use the words from the assessment forms that are being filled out, that's when I'm going to start creating the connection. And so what we need to do is we need to talk to them at where they're at, and we need to speak to the person who is already ready. What verbs are they using? So for your programs or whatever service you're working for, you're going to say to yourself, who is going to be the closest to me? Ultimately, that's who we want to attract as coaches, and that's who we want to get to buy our things. The person who is as like-minded as us, who takes fast action, who's direct, who has a high level of integrity. And now here, and I just did it without you realizing, now I'm going into coach speak. Fast action, high level of integrity. When clients sign up for things, when they buy products, they don't use those words. Those are coaching words. And we tend to use those in a lot of our posts when we're marketing something. Through this program, you're going to experience X result. They don't want to experience anything. That's a coaching word. And so when we're looking to our content, we want to make sure that we're using their words. And ultimately, that gets them into a place where, of course, you're placing yourself in their shoes, understanding what they'd be looking for. So here's how we do this. There's 3 types of clients that we talk to when it comes to buying stuff: situation aware, problem aware, and solution aware. When we are speaking to the person who is ready to buy now, who's ready to work with us now, we need to speak to a solution-aware person. And this means in our content, we need to tell them that they know they have a problem. We need to celebrate the fact that they're actively taking action towards working on whatever that problem is. And we need to celebrate the fact that they're already doing things. So if I was from a health perspective, and maybe someone is looking to lose weight through content, I'd say, hey, during your weight loss journey, you're already eating right. You're already working out. You've already changed your sleep. And you know what? You've seen some results, which is great, but for some reason, you can't lose the last 10 pounds. So even though you've tried the diets, even though you've tried this, what you need is something more. And this is where the connectivity happens. So speaking to someone who's solution aware is creating content to talk about the person who's already working towards what you're selling. And the reason why is because they're going to be the most open towards buying your product. If I'm already working towards my journey, I'm more open to coaching. If I'm already working to change my facility or to make things more available, I will be more open to the product. Versus if we talk to someone at the very, very early stages who's situation aware. When you're speaking to a situation aware, you're trying to make them aware that something is wrong. Hey, here's what you should consider adding into your facility. Hey, here's what you should consider is a problem in your life. And so what happens is you don't get a lot of buyers of the product and you don't get a lot of engagement in your content because you have to convince them first that they have a problem, and then you have to convince them that you have the solution. And that takes too long. It could take 6 months to a year. Now, there is the person in the middle, the person who knows that they have a problem, but They're not really sure what can help with the issue. And this is where great things like trainings or free resources or even tips and tools inside your content can change them from someone who's problem aware to someone who's solution aware. But we need to use their verbiage. And I would highly recommend moving forward, you speak to the person who's ready for the product and who's ready for the service now. Once we have their words, this is where now we build what I call ascension-based content. Ultimately, this is about building trust. When it comes to content, where we get stuck is we spend so much time sharing the tools, and then we say to ourselves, I feel like I've spoken about this before. There's only so many times you can talk about nutrition. Only so many times you can talk about what's inside your program. And the reality is in sharing the tools, we actually don't get a connection with the person. There's probably another program that has what you have to offer. There's probably another coach that has what you're offering in terms of a service. So here is how you create content effortlessly. The first is you share what you value. And the reason why is because it's going to show how you're going to help with your coaching or your product. Because people need to know, if I buy this thing, if I join this program, if I get into this, what is going to be the result at the end? And so the value helps them understand how you're going to help them get to the end. Okay. And Pamela, I see your content here, or your comment. I'll read it in a second, right after I share number 2. So the second is how you operate. How you operate as a business owner, how you operate inside your business, how you operate as a coach is very important, because it's going to show what it's going to be like to be inside your program or your container. So if you have a program, or if you have a container or a coaching space to sell or promote to someone, you do want to share in your content what it is like to be in your world every single day. Because if they can't see themselves working with you, then they're not going to see themselves buying your product. So the value is like, hey, am I going to be able to get to the result? Beautiful. The second one is, can I see myself working with this person? If not, I'm not going to buy their product, or I'm not going to do the thing. Now, before I go into the third one here, Pamela says, ever since you and the other coaches talk about problem aware versus situation aware, I've left some Facebook groups and joined other gym-like ones because it made much more sense, because they're already doing the things. That's right. We want to speak towards the person who's already doing the things instead of someone who just wants a quick fix. So now the third one, the third thing that we want to create content on is, here is why I operate this way. So for example, if I say, and hopefully you guys realize this by now, I'm a person who's straight to the point. I have no BS. I'm very sarcastic. I like to make the occasional joke. And so someone who works with me will know that I will be direct and I'll tell it as it is, but I'm kind. I want you to succeed. And we have a hell of a fun time doing that. Now, in sharing how I operate, the reason why I have to share why I operate this way is, well, frankly, they need to operate like your clients. So if I don't explain why this is possible, why this makes sense, they're not going to get the results that my clients will get through the program. And you know what's worse? Having them sign up and not seeing the result, and then blaming you for a failed product or a failed service. So when we create content, we don't share, here's what's in it. We share tips, we share value, but we do it through sharing our experience, how we operate, and why we're doing it this way. And I can share some examples with you a little bit later on. So the success piece, creating content is all about having someone make the commitment to sign up, and having someone make the commitment to either buy your product or to buy your service. And this comes down to talking about 4 things. You have to get them ready. Readiness is a big piece of someone being able to buy. You have to teach them how to be self-led, which is the ability to say, here's the program I need to be in. So if you have multiple programs, they're going to be able to choose. Or if you have multiple options, they're self-led, they're going to be able to know what they need. And then the third part is you have to teach them how to be unattached. Because sometimes people will come to you thinking that your product will desperately fix a problem, when in desperation, they're probably not going to see the result that they want. And the last thing is we have to teach them how to be driven, because we don't want them to take 6 months to make the decision. We want them to make the decision now. Show of hands, how many of you guys have had DM conversations with people? Maybe it's gone a little longer than you thought. Maybe people have kind of hum and hawed, and maybe they've taken a look at things here and there. Pamela says yes, right? Madeline puts up her hand, where it could have been a direct decision, but they weren't driven enough and they weren't self-led enough to make a commitment. Okay. And the big thing in the middle between these 4 traits that we're trying to teach in content is coaching. They need to be coachable in order for their goal to be successful. In order for you to buy a course, you have to be coachable. In order for you to buy a service, you have to be coachable. And so in our content, we can make content way easier if we talk more and share more about the stories and how our clients saw results, how they took fast action, how through your course they experienced X. They're going to get more value from that. They're going to get more connection through that than they are if you say, my modules in my programs contain X, Y, and Z. There's that fundamental disconnect that's there. So now once we have those 2 things, the ability to speak to someone's client words, which you can get from consults, their assessments, or conversations, and that talk about value, now we put this in a structure. And the structure for content looks the same. It's topic, story, what they aren't doing or what they're failing at, value, which you guys know how to show value, and then a call to action. So for the topic should be one that's close to what you're promoting. Whatever your offer is, your offer probably has a couple of key things that it helps with. Use topics around those key things. The second thing is a story. The reason why we have to share a story to provide value is because it shows connection to you as a coach and it makes them remember the value. Just information by itself, people forget all the time. But stories, people don't forget stories. Okay? Then we go into, in terms of the content, what they aren't doing, because this validates the challenge and explains why it's still a challenge for them. So I used an example earlier when it came to health. So let's say if I were to make a piece of content talking something about sleep. Okay, if sleep was my topic because I had a sleep course, maybe I would start with do you ever feel like you're sleeping 8 hours a day, but you still don't wake up feeling fully rested? Cool. Now insert the story. I had a client name who experienced this, and through this process, she tried putting cold towels on her back. She tried dimming the lights. She tried X, Y, and Z, and she still couldn't improve her sleep. So now we validated the challenge and we've connected them to being similar to the client. Now, this is where you're going to provide the value. Here's what they should do. So in this case, in my example, I'm going to say, here's how I coached my client through X. And then I provide the value. Here's how through my process, we did this. And that connects them to say, this coach, this person has the solution that I'm looking for. And finally, every piece of content, you should have a call to action. And I know sometimes as business owners, we don't want to put call to actions because we don't want to feel like we're selling. If we don't have a call to action, there's no invitation to take you up on your product or your service. So your call to action, you're going to tailor it with what they want them to do. The call to action could be as simple as send me for support. The call to action could be like, click the link above in my bio so you can learn more about my course or my module or my guide. But regardless of what piece of content you make, it follows this same process. So if I want to create a piece of content on values, I start with the topic. Hey, which specific value do I want to do? I find a story, either a story from a client, a story from my facility, a story from an experience, and then I just follow the same thing. So use this as your little rubric to make sure that if you're ever struggling with content, you just follow the step-by-step process. Does this make sense in terms of the kind of points to cover? Okay, cool. So now the important part. You're like, cool, Andrew, you've taught me what makes content good, but show me how to not make this take 15 hours because it's ridiculous. And this is where we make it really, really efficient. Okay? Content's got to be effortless. Okay. And it follows a 4-part system. First thing that you guys should do is you're going to create a content guide. And I'm going to tell you how to do it. And there's a picture of the first part, but I'm also going to tell you the second part. And I'm going to send you an example via email as well, too. A content guide is really important, and it outlines a couple of things: your core services, your ideal client and your target audience, your client pain points, and then it's also going to have what is in your program or service and how your client speaks. The reason why I write these down is because this is where I go to week after week that helps me create content every single time. If I don't have content ideas, I go back to this because there's a million and one ways that you can talk about the same thing. So here's an example, right? This one is for coaches. So I go into client pain points and I say to myself, I don't know what I'm going to be posting today. So I say, my client struggles with attracting consistent qualified leads. Okay, well, if I look into my core services, there's a lot of things that I can do to help them attract consistent leads. I can talk about a funnel. Here's how I create funnels that help attract consistent leads. Here's how I create content to help attract consistent leads. Here's how I create programs that help give me leads. And so the content guide allows you to continuously pull content where you can talk about it differently each time. If you don't have a content guide for your business, this takes about 35 minutes to build out. And like I said, I'll send you guys an example, but it allows you each and every time to step right into what the content is and for you to put yourself right into what they need. So you're not guessing, you're not trying to figure out, should I be posting about this? How do I say this? Once you pull from the content guide, then you follow the same process that I just showed you before: topic, story, what they're doing and what they aren't doing, and just make sure that you're talking about a value or one of these 3 things in there. If you do that, a piece of content will be created every single time. I follow this process and I've been following it for the past year and a half, and it doesn't really matter where you start in the process. As long as you follow each one of those things from the guide, then you're going to hit the nail on the head with your content every single time. And the benefit about using your guide is you know that you're going to be speaking to the same person at the same level about the same things, which also makes it easier for you to create any type of marketing or promotional materials around it. So after we create our guide, now we actually have to time block. When it comes to content, you need 3 time blocks in your schedule: filming, if you're going to be doing filming, editing, and writing. In total, you should be putting a minimum of an hour for each. It takes me 1 hour for me to be able to do the filming and the writing. And then the editing is that second hour that's in. I've got it down to about 2.5 hours. Now, the key with this is we are going to create long form copy. You're going to write it as if you were going to write it as a blog. You're going to write it as if you were going to write it as a script for a podcast or a script for a YouTube channel. And the reason why is because when we're going to go through the last part, which is we're going to leverage AI, and I'll share with you the tools I use to clip different parts of that. Because when we have longer conversations, there's tons of pieces of value that are in there. Something simple as Riverside, something as simple as Opus Clip, as well as Canva. Those 3 things can, from a long form piece of content that's a minimum of 20 minutes, can pull 3 to 4 reels and can be very simple. So we create the long form copy because it allows us to pull multiple pieces of content from. And I'm going to share an example with you guys because it's literally the episode that I just put up. 4 days ago, I put up episode 20 on the YouTube channel, Unlocking Your 50K Mindset. It took me 40 minutes for me to write out my script. And as usual, you spend more time writing than you do filming. It only took me about 25 minutes for me to say the script. So immediately, I got a good long form piece of content that for someone who digests or spends a lot of time or wants to educate, they know right away, this is where I can go for long form. Now, in using Riverside, and Riverside's a very cost-effective platform, AI will search through the entire 25 minutes, and it found 5 clips. And in those clips, it captioned them, it clipped them, it edited the audio. And so all I have to do is go in and make a little bit of tweaks here and there if I don't like the start point or the finish point. And through that process, that's going to go out as my YouTube channels. It's going to go out as my reels. So I'm not trying to think of stuff on the spot. My content is intentional with my long post. Now, on top of that, using Opus Clip will give you the summary, your takeaways, your title, and your sound bites. Now, here's what we're going to do with those. Your sound bites, they can be little one-word things. You already have every single step required to get to 50K. Put that as a picture. Now I write a long form copy of explaining that. Or I could take the takeaways and I could create a carousel out of the takeaways with my short form summary. So we have right here 1, 2, so there's 6, 7, 8, 10 pieces of content from just a single piece. And it's less than 2 hours for me to do this. And by following the content guide, it becomes the same steps. Now, when it comes to the carousel, well, using that 50K mindset, what did I talk about? In here, content, promotion, selling and nurturing. And if I look in this back one, first things that I talk about, client converting content, fast launching promotion, and then same thing, systemizing process and mindset. I pulled it from my takeaways, so I actually didn't have to find anything else. So the content can be very streamlined as long as we're going through the system and we're making sure that we're having something long enough for us to do. Now, let's say you're saying to yourself, Andrew, I'm not really a fan of long form content, or I have no intention of creating long form content. That's fine. You can still use the process from content guide going down to create these individual posts. And what I would recommend is selecting a topic for the month based off of your promotion. What is it that you're trying to promote or get people into? What do you want people to buy? Look at those topics to sell that thing and build content off of that. And then same thing at the very end, we put a call to action into that process. So any questions on that before we kind of open up stuff into kind of a general Q&A? Any questions on specifically the process of going through and maximizing the amount of content we get? Let me pull open the chat while we do that. No, beautiful. Beautiful. You guys are content wizards. I love it. All right, so before we open straight into to Q&A, so a lot of the things that I just shared and talked with you about today are actually things that are in what we call our Coach to Coach program. So Coach to Coach has a couple of different programs. It has the program Creating Client Converting Content, which we're going to be running next month. Currently, we're running the program that's called Fast Launch, which is how to build and launch your program or your product in 60 days. And then it also has a third program that's going to be running in January that's called No BS Solutions, which is basically a sales process that gets people signed up every time. The build out and the program of Coach to Coach is ultimately about making sure that your content completely aligns with what you're pushing so people can get fired up and excited to buy, to purchase the thing, and to sign up to work with you. It really is about making sure that you're speaking to the right person, that the people DMing you or messaging you to buy your product don't actually ghost you. They take action 100%. And that those people then will become clients that say yes to whatever the service is. And then they start to refer. So all three of those programs are included in Coach to Coach, but Coach to Coach is a monthly coaching program that's really designed in building about promoting that offer. So in being a part of the masterclass, some of you are in Coach to Coach right now, but there is a $200 fast action bonus towards being able to be a part of Coach to Coach if you feel that that's something that's ready for you. Otherwise, we do have client converting content that's going to be rolling out next month. That's going to be about the 3 C's, making sure that you have conversion, making sure that you have content that is community focused, and then making sure that you're having connectivity with that as well. So yeah, I'll leave that up here in terms of I should be able to put that in the background here, but let's open up into questions for you guys. What are you getting through this? What are you thinking as we talk content and talk about this connectivity? You guys can mute yourself, drop chat, whatever's easier.
I was going to type it, but I feel like it's easier just to talk. So
Absolutely.
I think sometimes it can be hard creating content that's not all over the place. So I have spent time thinking about pillars and like what is the main focus, but sometimes I like a lot of different things. So like, for example, my target market are women who have bloating and gut issues, but I'm also a fitness coach. And I also love talking about hiking and, how to de-stress, and I love music. So sometimes I get worried that I'm just kind of like all over the place, but it's because for content, sometimes I am thinking, oh my gosh, I have to post today. So I'm like, what am I doing in the moment? So I think, yes, probably that would help like planning out ahead of time. But my question is like, how many like topics would you cap yourself at on your like your Instagram page to talk about? Do you try to like really narrow it down and just drill the same things? Or do you recommend like allowing yourself to kind of open up and just like post things that like you're inspired by, but maybe try to like, sometimes it's hard to think about weaving in the main topic of like what I do, like just about bloating.
Okay, that makes sense. First of all, I'm going to move the camera here because I got two screens, but I'm actually facing you here. So from what I'm understanding, you're thinking to yourself, okay, I'm talking about a lot of things, but do I have to talk about just certain specific topics and nail my like IG solely to this one thing and then Facebook solely to this? The reality is you can have an unlimited amount of topics. The biggest thing, I ask myself two questions whenever I post. What is the purpose of this? And then the second is, how does it benefit my audience? So, for example, there's nothing wrong with you sharing your love of music. There's nothing wrong with sharing your hiking. However, what is the purpose of sharing the story? So, for example, if you go and you share your hiking and you say, activity is so important and it's actually one of the things that really helps benefit your gut, and then you explain why. Me personally, I love to go on hikes every single week, and this is my way of getting activity. Well, now the story becomes relevant and the purpose helps the client. So you don't have to limit yourself to a topic. But when you're putting something inside your piece of content, it's really, if I'm going to share the story, if I'm going to share this, how does it benefit the audience? If it doesn't benefit the audience, if you're saying to yourself, I feel like this is the check or the to do, this is where it becomes random. Now, this kind of part two that I heard in there was like, I'm writing topics, but I feel like I can help everyone with a lot of things. I can help with fitness. I can help with gut. I can help with this. Here's the beauty about when you have a product. When you're talking about filling a specific product, that product will help with a specific thing. So, for example, if you want to fill an IBS program, then you're going to talk about heavily about the things or the topics that are going to connect someone to the product that you're buying. And what you'll find, and you can even see this on my feed, is I will have seasons. Talking about Coach to Coach lately has been about client converting content, which is the next program we put in. So when I'm talking and doing live trainings and sharing posts about content, it's not that I'm not talking about other things. I still have posts on sales. I still have posts on funnels, but my primary focus is what my offer is coming up because I want to fill that offer. And so You can write down all of the topics. In reality, though, your service will only have 3 or 4 key things that you aim to help someone with. That's the goal of having a specific audience. So you can say to yourself, yeah, you know what? One of the goals as a part of this program is being bloat free or having good digestibility. Cool. But the second objective of the program might be having a really great activity routine. Maybe that's an objective. Once we have our key objectives of our program or of our service, that's when we then say, what topics can I talk about that outline these key objectives so my clients can get closer to the program? Because there's over 50 things that we can talk about when it comes to digestion, but they're all relating to the one thing, which is your program can get that help and the support. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's helpful. That's good. Thank you.
Nice. Great question. Any what else are we hearing through this process?
I don't really have any questions at the moment. I sort of digest things afterwards. But yeah, I would say this was just like really eye-opening sort of on like the long form content type of thing. And how you can take that and like sort of convert it into like a lot of smaller little things of content. It's not something that like I've ever really tried or thought about, but I think that'll be really helpful. And I've also like never focused on like a certain topic in my content. I've just like very randomly posted. So yeah, I think it would also be very helpful to like find topics, find sort of what those things are and focus on that.
Both of you guys, well, everyone on the call will benefit from looking at the content guide. So, and because it'll give you the ability to be able to structure your own, because if like posting in the moment is great. And I don't want to discourage you guys from doing that, because some of the most powerful energy that we can share is you just finished working with a client and you're like, hey, I did this, and you're fired up. People will feel that. Don't be like, oh, it's every Tuesday, I'm just going to go post for the sake of posting. Like, being in the moment is fine, but when it comes to like, you don't have topics there all over the place, your topics can be found within your program or your course that's there. You have things that you're teaching people. You have things that you're going to have them implement. And so it's probably going to come down to a couple of key principles. And those things, those are the things where you go, how do I make more topics on that? Because what compels someone to buy is and again, I'll beat this to death, but it just makes sense, right? If I talked about, like, you saw my entire feed for a month and it was, okay, client speaking, and then it was also value proposition, and it was also awareness versus action-based content, and it was also how to be able to create posts, if it was also speaking to your ideal client, every single post brings you further and further along the conclusion. Okay, if I need a lot of this shit, I probably have a content problem. And that's what's supposed to happen. People are supposed to self-diagnose. They're supposed to say, with the information that you're sharing and the topics that you're giving, they're supposed to come to the conclusion, I need what you have. And if they're not coming to the conclusion, it's because you're not leading them there. And this is where sometimes we can have an offer, but it's so far away because they're like, is it for me? Can I help? Is this the type of thing that I'm looking for? When you're like, yes, it can totally help you. So the closer to we can bring the person to be able to say, you know what, I think I need this program. You know what, I think I need to buy this thing. It has what I need. And you don't have to do it in a way that like makes them desperate, but it's the natural conclusion. They're like, you know what, I've seen this stuff. I can tell that there's a gap that I'm missing. Naturally, this is the next step. Join the thing, buy the course, join the program. And that's when they get excited to do it. Because when I know, oh, this has what I need, this has what I'm looking for, this is going to help me get to the next level, that's the excitement that gets them to buy. And this is where you're going to find in your content, you'll spend a lot less time talking about what's inside what you're selling and more time the experience, the result, the transformation through the process. That makes sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Nice. Excellent. Anything else or any other questions? Pamela put here in the chat. Now I'm just Facebook and IG, hardly on TikTok and LinkedIn. People don't really talk to me on TikTok. So it's important, Pamela, to understand a couple of things. Certain platforms have certain demographics, and it's not that you can't post on everywhere. My big thing, because coach to coach is new, my big thing is I want visibility, and I'm still testing the platforms. But after 3 months of my visibility, I already know which ones are working: YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. So chances are I'll probably kill TikTok and stuff as well, because you have to look at the demographics. TikTok are the young kids who are basically wanting to, I don't want to say do the dances, but they're really just looking to consume. They're not looking to take action on something. TikTok is great for products. TikTok is not great for service like coaching. Whereas if you were to go somewhere like Facebook or Instagram, a lot of business owners, a lot of practitioners, a lot of like people who are well established use these things often. And so services, coaching, programs, those do very well on there because it's a more mature audience. And LinkedIn, truthfully, LinkedIn isn't for promoting. LinkedIn is for validation. It's to show, if you're targeting business professionals specifically, it's to show, hey, I have a presence and I'm a legitimate company. You don't really market and do stuff on LinkedIn. So yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, Pamela says a lot of scrollers on TikTok, 100%. And it's not that you won't find clients there. We do. It's you want to work and put content into the thing that's going to give you the biggest result. So if you're on a platform like what's the example? A mentor of mine told me an example. Okay. You go to a lake and you take a bucket and you fill the bucket and you look at it and you go, there's no fish. Does that mean there's no fish in the lake? No, of course there's fish in the lake. You just don't have your bucket's too small. You're not fishing in the right spot. And so it's the same thing when it comes to where you're doing your content. If you've put your content out in a place for 6 months and it's not getting the traction that you want, I would encourage you to switch platforms for a little bit, because you would be surprised as to where your specific ideal client is hiding. And ultimately, you guys, I'm sure, are aware enough to know where they are. But if you're not, you can also switch platforms as well. Nice. Anything else? Any other sweet thoughts through good old content? No, we're in a good spot. Beautiful. Look at that. Right on time. 7:58 on the nose. We kicked butts. You guys are going to get a copy of this, of the recording. Again, I encourage you guys to look it over again. Make sure you're writing down the steps. I'll send it the recording first thing tomorrow. You'll get a copy of the example content guide, so you can see what a content guide looks like and how to be able to fill your own in. I'd encourage you guys to do that. And then as well too, I'll one other thing here, share, boom. There. So if you guys have not checked out the YouTube channel, some of you guys have been using the YouTube channel, some of you haven't been, there's a QR code there, or you can just go to Coach YouTube. So Coach to Coach Systems. I'm going to be doing basically that's where I put really, really long form content. It's similar to my podcast. I find that when it comes to coaches and business owners, it's a lot easier for them to just have the channel up and just be listening to stuff in the background. So that's exactly how I've designed it. So if you want to check it out, you can do the QR code. It leads straight there, or just check out Coach to Coach Systems on YouTube. Other than that, that is all for today and all the fun stuff. So now you guys can enjoy the rest of the day while I end this here. Did you guys see the QR code or no? For some reason, the screen's not sharing it.
I didn't pop up.
Story of my life. Rule of thumb, don't ever change your stuff before you do a presentation. There it is. There's the QR code there. So perfect. So you guys you can take a screenshot or pop on and perfect. So yeah, and make sure you subscribe for of course all of the newest trainings that are coming up, but there's trainings each and every week. So other than that, thank you guys so much for hopping on and for tuning in to the training. Any questions you got, don't hesitate to ask. I'm here, of course, to be able to support you. Thanks for sharing a little bit of the evening. And then other than that, you guys enjoy the rest of the day. Go kick content butt. I'm rooting for you, and I'll be watching your feed secretly. That'll be the fun stuff. So we will catch y'all later. Thanks for hopping on. Thanks, Tegan. Thanks, Madeline. And thanks, Pamela. Catch you guys later. See ya. Bye.